Good evening, everyone. Today's webinar has been jointly organized by the Indo-Palestine Solidarity Network and IndoPal Foundation. We welcome each one of you to this very special event commemorating the Nakba, also known as the Palestinian catastrophe. This was the destruction of Palestinian society and homeland in 1948 and the permanent displacement of a majority of the Palestinian Arabs. The term is also used today to describe the ongoing Nakba, the persecution, displacement, and occupation of the Palestinians, both in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip, as well as in the Palestinian refugee camps throughout the region. The tragic and targeted murder of the Al Jazeera Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh a few days ago is part of this ongoing Nakba. We hope we can get the permission of the three organizing groups of this webinar to pass a collective resolution condemning the killing of Shireen. The moderator today of this webinar is Laik Ahmed Khan, and he is a member of the IndoPal Foundation. Laik Ahmed Khan is a mechanical engineer graduate from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University. He served as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Hyderabad. He also served as National Secretary for Students of the Islamic Organization of India. Presently, he is serving as the Assistant National Secretary of Jamaat-e-Islami Hind, and also served as an executive member of Delhi-based Fraternity Movement of India and working committee member of United Against Hate, a national movement. During various student meets in universities across countries, he delivered lectures on balanced thinking, constructive thoughts, global peace, future of Indian youth, true essence of Islam, unleash your potentials, behavior of the conscious and unconscious mind, politics of Bahujan, Muslim identity assertion, entrepreneurship development, human rights, technology, minority rights, countering violent extremism, and others. He was also engaged in protests against cutting of UGC fellowship for university students, normalizing lynching of Muslims and Dalits, rapes and gender exploitation, illegal detention, etc. He is engaged in building a strong minority and oppressed network to render rights and justice. So I'll hand over to you, Laik Ahmed Khan.
So, thank you very much, sir. So I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for this. So with a brief introduction of today's initiative, especially in regards to this day of Nakba, and since it's continuously a Nakba, every day the Palestinians are facing a Nakba. Just I'll read out a small note of the purpose of this meeting today, and especially the condolence to the Shireen, the journalist of Al Jazeera, and our position on that, and we'll hand over to the ambassador, inshallah. On 74th year of ongoing Nakba, the occupation continues, and colonial legacy of is keep continuing the killing and apartheid of Palestine, racism and xenophobia, under shelter of false narrative of freedom and democracy. Today, we at Indo-Palestinian Solidarity Network, IndoPal Foundation, and India-Palestine Friendship Forum together reiterate our call for meaningful solidarity with Palestinians facing ethnic cleansing, massacres, colonial dispositions, and apartheid, and raise our voice against occupation and the continuing Nakba in Palestine. A year back, we have raised voice for besieging of Gaza, resisted ethnic cleansing in Jerusalem, and shelling in mosques Al-Aqsa, and stood in unity against Israeli settler, colonial, and apartheid attacks in cities of historic Palestine. Yet, Western governments often only condemnation at best and silence and inaction at worst, complete inaction. Now this year, Palestinians have once again faced and resisted apartheid, Israel's violent aggression and desecration of holy sites. Israel's brutality toward Palestinians has been ongoing from past 74 years. Yet during the month of Ramadan, Israel escalated its violent suspension of Palestinian rights in occupied city of Jerusalem and beyond. The Western cry and screams during Russian war on Ukraine and their silence and inaction on Israeli occupation on Palestine from past 7 decades has clearly opens up the Western hypocrisy, hatred, Islamophobia, and xenophobic tendencies towards biased policy of human and civil rights across the globe. Rather, they have unconditionally supported Israeli blood game and put blanket boycott and sanctions against Russia. And this Western double standards is condemned by people across the globe. Today, we organize this event to discuss the ongoing Nakba and remind the world of all the growing global consensus that Israel is committing a crime of apartheid against all Palestinians and destabilizing the global peace by violation of international treaties and agreements. We reiterate our call on government to impose lawful, proportional, and targeted sanctions on Israel, for the UN to launch an investigation into Israeli apartheid, and for the people across the globe in order to isolate Israel apartheid regime and attain freedom, justice, and equality for Palestinians. Today, for covering Israeli crimes, Shireen is being killed by brutal forces who has left no moral groundings of being called as a force. We're all Western feminists now present, where all international media houses and journalists are present today, who screams for freedom of press. Their throats are choked by Western money and power. We unitedly call for immediate investigation by International Court of Justice, and culprit must be brought to the court of law, so that the world must get lesson. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. May Allah grant highest place to Shireen in heavens and give patience to her family and friends. So with these words, His Excellency Adnan Abu Al-Haija, the Ambassador of Palestine to India, to please speak on this occasion.
Thank you very much. Namaste, good evening, and assalamu alaikum. Allow me at the beginning to thank you all. Thank Indo-Palestine Solidarity Network and Indo Foundation, who are working hard to remind people of the Palestinian Nakba and for the success of this event. To say the truth, at the beginning, I'll be embarrassed with you because I thought I wrote my speech for a people to introduce the cause of Palestine and Nakba. But I have noticed that all of you are activists, and I think the information in my speech is well known to all of you. So forgive me for that, because I wrote it for normal people at the beginning. The Palestinian Nakba is continuing for 74 years since 1948. This year, our people are facing more aggressive crimes of the Israelis' extreme government and their settlers. The military occupation forces and their settlers have killed 58 Palestinian civilians from the beginning of this year. Last one was Shireen Abu Akleh, the veteran journalist who has been assassinated in the city of Jenin. Shireen has been killed while she was wearing a press jacket and helmet. Shireen has been shot to kill the truth. Also, hundreds were injured and thousands were imprisoned. Besides that, this occupational government are working hard for a religious war through their daily attack of holy place of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the worshipper. The Israelis are working to divide Al-Aqsa compound between Muslims and Jews in a place and time. And because of that, every day in the morning from 7:30 till 11, they guard the settlers. The Israeli army guard the settlers and attack Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque area is 144,000 meter square. All this area is an Islamic place only. No one could share Muslims in this holy place. The Palestinian people will not allow the Israeli government and their settlers to continue its crime toward Al-Aqsa Mosque, and will do everything to protect the first of the two Qiblas and the third of the two holy mosques. As you know, Israel occupied the land of West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem in 1967. This occupation is illegal in every aspect and must end. This occupation is propped up only through systemic breaches of international law, many amounting to war crimes, and long ago passed the threshold of legality. Whether the settlements, colonization, annexation of land, the repression, collective punishment, and apartheid against our people. Those who believe Israel has actually suspended or seized its annexation plan are willfully or mistakenly ignoring what is happening. Every single day in occupied Palestine, including East Jerusalem, settlements are being rapidly expanded as Israel moves ahead with the plans to construct thousands and thousands more settlements units in just the period since its so-called suspension announcement, especially in Jerusalem and Bethlehem areas, proving over and over that it rejects the two-state solution and has no intention to end its occupation. The occupying power also persists with its wall construction, confiscation of Palestinian land, exploitation of natural resources, dangerous excavation under holy sites, and violation of the historic status quo Al-Haram al-Sharif. Hundreds more homes and civilian structure, including schools and clinics, have been demolished. Palestinian families are being evicted, dispossessed, rendered homeless even in this time of pandemic. As our civilians are forcibly transferred in an ongoing ethnic cleansing, extremist settlers and militias abetted by the Israeli military and openly funded and incited by Israeli government also continue their reign of violence and terror, attempting to drive our people from their land. The scope and scale of the occupation's human rights violation are too vast enumerate here, but are corroborated by the many reports of United Nations agencies and international organizations. Palestinian children, women and women tragically continue to be killed and injured in daily military raids on Palestinian cities, towns, villages, and refugee camps. Palestinians, especially young males, continue to be arrested, administratively detained, imprisoned, medically neglected, and tortured. With nearly 5,000 now captive in Israeli jails, including at least 160 children and more than 40 women. The bodies of Palestinians killed by occupying forces continue to withheld, obstructing their proper burial and deepening the trauma endured by their families. Moreover, Israel continues to collectively punish the Palestinian people and impose a racist apartheid regime controlling and blighting every aspect of their life. The occupying forces routinely threaten, humiliate, and abuse Palestinian civilians, particularly at the hundreds of military checkpoints, restricting freedom of movement and fragmenting our land into walled-in, isolated Bantustans. Most shocking remain the illegal 15 years blockade to Gaza by occupying forces, which Israel has turned the Gaza Strip into an open-air prison and methodically inflicted a humanitarian crisis on the entire civilian population in what constitutes a massive violation of human rights tantamount to a crime against humanity. This cruel and deliberate deprivation of 2 million people is nearing the brink of disaster, averted only by international humanitarian support, foremost via UNRWA, which itself faces financial crisis threatening continuity of its vital assistance to 5.6 million Palestinian refugees across the region. We appeal for attention to this crisis, demanding an end to Israeli blockade and calling for support to UNRWA to ensure the well-being of the refugees, pending a just solution to their plight. The hindsight acquired in the past 74 years makes clear that the occupation has merely served as pseudo-legal facade for unlawful colonization. The failure to uphold the law and the human rights standards when it comes to the Israeli occupation and the failure to enact consequences for the violation has only emboldened more violation. States must act on their responsibilities and commitments and end the double standard of rewarding rather than punishing Israel for its illegal behavior. It's singling out for exception treatment must end here and now. There is no alternative if we are to change the dismal situation that prevails. Accountability is the key to deter further crimes, spare the suffering of more innocents, and create a credible horizon that can take us from talking and dreaming of a just peace to making it reality. Accountability is a legal obligation and is what can ultimately compel compliance in the face of the decades intransigence and help us open a new chapter that bring both Palestinian and Israeli peoples peace, stability, and security. We urge all states to uphold international law in regards to the Palestinian question in word and deed, including through support the United Nations resolutions and tangible efforts to implement them at the national and international levels. We urge support for an international peace conference based on the international consensus enshrined in UN resolutions as the most effective means to resolve this conflict and establish a just, lasting peace. We call for activation of the Security Council in line with its charter duties, the Quartet in line with its mandate, and all concerned regional and international partners for this purpose. We urge continued support for the unalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including to self-determination and independence, and call for recognition of the state of Palestine on the pre-1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital by states who have not done so. At the end, I will thank again Indo-Palestine Security. Thank you all first, and thank Indo-Palestine Solidarity Network and IndoPal Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency. So
Yes.
we have Ranjan sir, do we have any questions around here, or should we go with?
I don't know if they are hearing or not.
So you can, I think there should be question answers.
So it's an open now. The house is open. So
Yeah.
we have His Excellency here on board with us. So if anyone wants to post a question or directly ask, so they can just open that, unmute their Zoom, and they can just go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Adnan.
Assalamu alaikum.
I will go first if nobody else is.
Welcome.
I heard a speech from a scholar. His name is Javed Ahmed Ghamidi, and he's very knowledgeable about the politics as well as Islam. And he raised a question, and it still lingers in my mind. He says, if you cannot fight, you better make peace.
Yes.
Now, situation in Palestine, you're throwing rocks. Not you, I mean, not Palestinian Authority, but generally, Palestinians are throwing rocks, and they're firing rockets from Gaza, which are not even rockets, they are like firecrackers, everybody knows. They have not done any damage so far. In return, Palestinians are being killed. Their buildings have been demolished, they have been attacked with missiles and bombs, and every day we see a number of Palestinians are being killed. Question that the scholar asked, or he proposed, was that, is there any point in fighting? We should make peace now. Peace, and live in peace. Let our families in Palestine live in peace, get education, and make themselves strong rather than wasting their energy in off and on attacks which do more damage than actually do any good. What are your thoughts about that?
Let me say that his opinion has come from the end of the march, because I think we have started this way of peace, and we have signed Oslo Agreement 1993. And since that time, the Israelis are negotiating with us just for negotiation. Every day, they are killing people, jailing people without any reason. They are confiscating land. They are building new settlement units. They don't allow us even to build when we build because we have to build. They
Yes.
come and demolish our houses.
Correct.
Right?
They don't give you permits. They
Allow me
don't
to
give permits. Yeah.
They don't give us permit, while
Correct.
they give thousands of units to the Israelis.
Correct.
Now, as an example, India donated 29 million for Palestine to build a hospital. For 5 years up to now, we can't find a piece of land to build that hospital. Why? Because if you know that the areas in Palestine are divided for 3 different areas, A, B, and C, right?
Yes.
A is the cities, B is the towns, and in between, which is controlled by the Israelis, it is more than 60% of West Bank, right?
Yeah.
Controlled by the Israelis, and we can't do anything there.
Yeah.
That area also, those hundreds of military checkpoints. Now, let me say another thing. Up to now, by the way, we could not find in A area a piece of land to build a hospital donated by the Indian. It's $29 million. It's not small
Right.
hospital, right? At the beginning, we have suggested near Bethlehem a piece of land, but it was in C area. It has been refused because the Indians themselves said that the Israelis might come and demolish what we are building, right? Now, the international law gives us all the right to struggle in all means, including the military. But this world is dealing with double standard. If they give us 5% of what they have given to Ukraine in politics, military, and money, I guarantee you a few months, the Palestinian land will be liberated. And we could establish in 5% only of what they have given Ukraine. Now, as I said from the beginning, we went for peace from 1993. The Israelis, they don't want a Palestinian state. They
Correct.
want all the land. We want our people to live as a second people, as whatever community, whatever you call them, under the occupation, and that will never happen. We are struggling for 100 years now, since the British mandate.
Yeah.
When the British army have come to Palestine, we are fighting, right? And we have the power to continue. Hope we could get our independence soon, and we don't want our generations to live what we have lived, right? As I told my colleagues now, that my friends, that I have been injured 3 different times struggling for Palestine. But no one will continue with his power. The American ran away from Afghanistan, and they ran away before from Vietnam. Our people is on the land, and our population is more than the Israelis now in historical Palestine. So hope the Israelis will go to peace. We are calling for peace always. And in my speech, I called for peace, right? But not any, not
yeah,
any-
no, I understand what your point is, but the thing is, looking at all the scenario for last 100 years, there's no way Israel wants peace. It wants to eliminate all Palestinians. It wants the land, not the people.
Yes.
We know that. Right? It's very clear. You kill one Israeli, they kill 1,000 Palestinians. In Gaza, people are living in deplorable conditions. People don't have enough nutrition and not clean water, and they are so restricted. Now, I was just thinking, Is there a way to make life of Palestinian better by offering peace, firing no rockets, giving no excuse to Israelis to bomb Gaza and other buildings? We need to think about it because the generations are being damaged by Israel. They are shooting the sharpshooters. They are killing children. They are maiming children and adults every day. And the world doesn't care because the media is all controlled. Shirin was killed and it was reported as being a result of a fight between Palestinian and Israeli forces. And so the odds are against Palestine so far. That's how I see it.
Situation has never been forever, whatever, right? And to give up of our struggle, sure, we are not going to give up. We will continue our struggle. If the Israelis, as you said, they want the whole land without people.
Correct.
Now, if you attack the puppet of a cat, what she will do? She will attack you. She will defend her puppet, right? How can a human like us see the Israelis are killing our children every day and we don't defend? To live as slaves in our homeland, we have accepted 22% of our historical land, but they don't want even to give us 22% of our historical land. I am from Bet She'an in the north of Israel, right? And I have all the paper of my father and the grandfather that this land is to us, right?
Yeah.
So the world will change with the power. I have hope, by the way. Okay, we are paying high price. I know that we are paying high price, but also they are not going to feel in peace as long as they are occupying our people and they are not coming for peace. The Israelis should come for peace because we have come for peace and we accept 22% of our historical land. As I have mentioned, we have more than 5,000 in prison. Daily, as you said, kill children. This apartheid regime, this racist regime, this occupation will never feel peace as long as there is no real peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hope I
Okay,
can.
Susanji.
We
We can
have
take some other questions if they have.
yes. Hope
Otherwise,
we
we
can
move ahead for the concluding.
have your ideas. Yes.
If any other wants to ask any question, then they can unmute themselves and go ahead. I think Matthew is here. Matthew, you have any question? If Matthew is here.
Right? Can I
Yeah.
speak? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would I would say something about what Nusrat has raised. I don't know if we need a peace under the conditions that Israel wants to have a peace. It is not about peace alone. The peace of the graveyard, as we would call it. That's not the kind of peace that we should have. Because the Palestinians are clearly looking for justice and not for peace without justice. Unless there is justice, there is no question of peace at all. To give away the land and say, okay, just educate us and feed us, makes the Palestinians into objects of charity, of welfare from the Israeli state, and that's not about a just state. A state must be something that belongs to the people, where they govern it, rule it, and so forth. So I don't think there will be, and there should not be an end to the struggle that is going on now, even if it may look marginal to us. I always believe, and I would like to hear what the ambassador has to say, that even if they are sticks and stones, it was sticks and stones that brought the 1993 talks, the first Intifada. And so Israel is not in control because it has superior military strength. I think it even with its military strength, its so-called superior military strength, it is not able to cope with the protests that are coming from different towns and villages from all over, and even from Gaza, which we may think is the weakest part of Palestine, but they are determined. Let's not believe that these small rockets are not doing anything. It sends people away from the Israeli borders into the town, and they are the ones who have to live in in shelters. And after 10 or 12 days, they are fighting with their own government to put an end to that war so that they can go home. So I don't think the Palestinians are going to submit. I don't think they're going to surrender. We need a peace which I think must have justice and dignity, and not please give us education. That becomes too weak. I don't know. I'd like to hear the ambassador's comments on that.
It's true. It's true that, I mean, we are not looking for any peace. If we are looking for any peace, that means we have to accept to live under the occupation in their rules. It is, as I have mentioned, it's an apartheid regime even for the Arabs who has Israeli nationality. Not, we are under occupation. We know that we are living under military rule of the Israelis. But the Palestinian, the percent of the Palestinian who has Israeli nationality is 20%. There are 2 million people living in Israel. The Israeli law is an apartheid law, even to those Palestinians, not to the people in West Bank. As I mentioned, that we are looking for peace a long time ago, 1993, but they don't want peace. We don't have partner for peace in Israel. And even the Israeli society are going for more extreme. The people who are talking in logic is very little percent now in Israel. So we are facing a very extreme government. They want everything and they don't want to give the Palestinian anything, which it won't be acceptable for the Palestinian people.
I think Air Commodore Chinia answered the question. What are the options available to us to begin to resolve this problem? At least the first step.
Find me an Israeli government accept peace. And ready.
That will not happen. They have the upper hand. They have all the power in the world. They have the media. They have the weapons. They have the American Parliament, Congress with them, the Jewish lobby. The whole strength of the world is with Israel. Even the deaths of Palestinians and Palestinian children is not reported properly. So in this situation, how do you see a solution? How do you see how long it will take, how many lives will be sacrificed before you get a solution?
We don't know. We don't know exactly. But I know that we will never give up of our struggle. As long as there is no just peace, as my friend says, right? And to live as a slave in our homeland under occupation, that will never happen. You have to pay the price sometimes. We don't know for how long. When this international community will stop using double standard, right? And let me say, I was happy, by the way, when the American failed to take a resolution against Russia because of veto at the Security Council first meeting. Then the ambassador of the United States said, we are going to the General Assembly. I said they have become like the Palestinian because at the Security Council, because of the American veto, sometimes we fail to take a resolution. So we go to the General Assembly, and the American, in their resolution, they have taken 141 vote, while most of the time we take more 160, right? So I think the world, because this case, especially this cause, Palestine, as Mr. Arafat said, it is the cause of peace or the cause of war. And we are looking for peace. let the other part go for peace, and we are ready always for peace, to negotiate, right, and to take our right. We are not asking much. We are asking for 20% of our homeland. If you have other solution, tell me.
Aruna and Nadeem raised their hands. If they have any query, they can talk.
May I like one more, just one more input? Like?
Yeah.
Okay. I recall at this point of time the Vietnam War. It's a small country, and the Viet Cong, the guerrillas, fought back and sent back a powerful American army, a very powerful American army compared to what Vietnam was. Who won that war? It was Viet Cong. It was not external powers that came and fought them. They were not armed to the teeth. They didn't have military tanks, this, that, and the other. I'm thinking of Afghanistan. 20 years of American occupation to remove the Taliban. They killed 20 million people, and still they have the Taliban, nothing else. They have not won. You know, imperialists can disrupt. They cannot win. That is my opinion. And I think this will be the same thing. The empire will lose in Palestine. Unfortunately, there will be many innocent lives taken before that. But it is impossible that Israel, with no moral authority, no moral legs to stand on, can win this.
So I think we can proceed. I request Ranjan to please
Aruna has raised.
Aruna has
take
raised.
over.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead.
Can I please speak?
Please. Go ahead.
Okay,
Please.
I mean, from the message that I got from Mr. Khwaja, it sounds like Palestine is stopping the peace process. Palestine is responsible, and if they do something, the peace process can go on. We know throughout this history how many efforts have been made by Palestinians to stop the bombing, the way in which they have been treated. So I think it's very unjust to make it sound as if it is the fault of the Palestinians that the war is going on and that there's so much killing. So much of it is the innocent women, children being killed in Palestine, and nobody is protesting. So I'm very puzzled when you say that Palestine should stop. What are they doing? They're not doing anything to promote the war or to keep it going. And it's always the other side which provokes any violence. And we're seeing it happening again and again and again. So I think we must be very careful in how we frame this, because it has to be someone from outside who comes and puts some sense into Israel's head by, denying them the amount of firing power they have, etc. The US has to stop arming Israel to kill these innocent women and children, etc. in Palestine. Then the war may stop. So I think we have to, let's stop looking there for the answer and look to the powers outside who are actually controlling the game. And sorry, I think I will also add that because someone has said it in the chat box, and I think it's important. I think we need to, in India, think of sort of a large scale protest against the way in which the Indian government is keeping silent on Palestine too. You said that they are funding a hospital. That's the easiest thing to do, to give some money and say you build a hospital to take care of the people who are injured in the war. So I think that we need to think of the biggest arms dealer for India is Israel. We have a lot of vested interest in keeping Israel happy. So our government will not censure Israel. So what are we as citizens of this country doing? Why do we take it? Why don't we speak out and more boldly take a stand on what India is doing in this situation?
Yeah, but when I have mentioned that, I mentioned it of that the problem we are facing in Palestine, right? That we did not find a piece of land to build a hospital.
I know.
Not to mention the donation itself, as long as they are controlling more than 60% of West Bank land, right? And we don't have any kind of freedom to do whatever we could do there. Anything we do, they come and demolish it.
Ranjan, you are muted.
Okay, the question that somebody has asked in the chat box is what role can China play? Because China has fairly consistently said we are willing to help organize talks. But of course, the West does not want China to come in because that increases China's sphere of influence. But China has less vested interests than the West has. The West is carrying its guilt from the times of the Holocaust till today. And so for them, settler colonialism is not a problem because they are colonizers and they sent these people into. I mean, after all, how was Israel born? The British gave that land to a country, a nation that wasn't there. So can you say something about the role of China? It would help.
I don't think China are allowed to do anything. China is following the international law, right? And always they vote with Palestine, always looking for a legitimate law. They want what we were going for is an independent Palestinian state on the land of 1967 borders, right? Or a peace solution at the international law. This is what China, they are ready for anything, but they are not allowed to do anything, the Chinese. Even the quartet now, the Israelis are refusing the quartet, which is the United Nation, Russia, United States, and European Union. There is no meeting. The Russians are calling for a quartet meeting before the crisis of Ukraine, right, or the operation in Ukraine, but the Americans are refusing. So China is ready for any peace at the international law, but they are not allowed to get any rule in the peace process. By the way, tomorrow and after tomorrow, we have opened a condolences book for Shireen in our embassy.
Yeah, tomorrow in the daytime we are going to come, sir.
From 11 to 3.
Yeah.
Tomorrow and after tomorrow.
Tomorrow we will come to embassy, inshallah.
Welcome.
So I think, Ranjan, will you go ahead?
Okay. I have been asked to share a few thoughts on the way forward, which I will do.
Please.
I think it's so very clear from what the ambassador said that we are dealing with Israel, which is not an ordinary state. It's an apartheid, colonialist, racist, and a fascist state. They claim that they are the only democracy in the Middle East, but they are not a democracy. How is it a democracy when you need 4 elections to find a government which is not stable in any case? So this is no democracy. This is not the way democracy is constructed, and it functions as an autocratic, militaristic government. That's the first thing we should recognize. And in the statement that we have agreed we will put out, I think that should be our preamble to describe the nature of the Israeli state. And then come the consequences. So the consequences are on the Palestinians. I think there are many roles that have come up in indirect conversations today. The ambassador referred to the BDS campaign, a very successful campaign in the case of South Africa, and boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Regardless of what we say, whether it is making an impact or not, it is making an impact because so many European governments and the North Americans and states within the US are trying to obstruct or create legislation that will prevent BDS from happening. So if it is not a viable instrument, why are they trying to obstruct it? It is a democratic, peaceful way of protesting against the colonization of Palestine. I do not like to use the word occupation anymore. I think it's the colonization. So BDS is something that we can start with. IPSN is doing some work on BDS in 3 fields. One is we've started with Hewlett Packard. We want to move to Puma. And we are also supporting the campaign to plant more and more olive trees as a way of our protest and support to farmers, Palestinian farmers, but as a protest against colonization of those lands. I agree with what Aruna said, that we need to have a large presence at some point, some space in the country where we come together and speak up in an important way, a national conference of civil society, of human rights organizations who will come together and condemn, understand the nature of the colonization and think out solutions that we propose. I think the third thing is we need to do more active lobbying. I think IndoPal is doing some of this, active lobbying at the level of the parliament with ministers, with the opposition and with left parties, because they are the spaces where we have hope. I am not sure whether our current government is going to listen to us. They are too close to the Israeli government. But I think it is important to see that there was a time, even during the Modi regime, when a military contact was cancelled simply because one of their advisors, a consultant, who is an ex-army person of a very high standing, who said that this is a rotten deal. We don't need to buy this. We don't even need to actually buy the military hardware that Israel is importing to us. So I think this kind of campaigning, educating ourselves and campaigning is also very important. So lobbying is a tool for us, for IPSN working, but IndoPal is the one that is in Delhi. And so I think we should work with them and we should work together to bring an end to this. I think we should also be doing public campaigning. Wherever possible, we should use the media to write and bring consciousness to the Palestinian situation. And this is a very apt time because the whole world is talking about Ukraine, and we can draw the parallels between the double standards that the West is employing in Ukraine vis-a-vis Palestine. So this public kind of campaign must go on. I just want to end with one thing. Beyond solidarity, I think we should be supporting at every point of time, because there are incidents almost every third day. We shouldn't tire of being in solidarity with the Palestinians. The Palestinians need our solidarity, and we should be with them as much as we need to be. Because if we do not express our solidarity with steadfastness, we are not supporting the steadfast nature of the struggle. If you meet a Palestinian, they will always tell you, we are steadfast in our struggle. We are losing people, but we are steadfast. I think they call it sumud. Sumud is the name that they use, which means that we will never surrender. We are there. We have been here, and we are not going anywhere. So, and then there are many theories wondering, how long can the Israelis stay? The Russian Jews that came are going back because they have been mistreated. There is racism in Israel. Many Jews who came from America are saying, well, this is not what we came for. We are uncertain. We are living at in spaces where there is so much risk to our lives. So we will also leave. So at some point, this immoral exercise, immoral laboratory that Israel has constructed will collapse. It will collapse. And that is my hope. So I like to think that we stay with hope, however difficult it looks today. And that is something that's a message we got from the ambassador, that they are not going anywhere. They will stick with hope. And we should also hold ourselves in that kind of hope, which we then share with our Palestinian sisters and brothers. Last, justice is the precondition for peace. Not a peace that just comes from nothing, not for nothing. Unless the Palestinians win justice, they will not surrender. They will not surrender their people or the land that is theirs. They can continue to steal the land. And I always remember a colleague with whom I worked in the World Council of Churches. He used to tell Palestinians, look at these buildings. These are yours. They'll come back to you. They'll run away one day, he said. This is not their land. They have to go somewhere. They'll go away, but they won't be here. So I want to end with that on a sign of hope and maybe adamant militants talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are very delighted to have all over here, especially His Excellency the Ambassador of Palestine to India, Ranjan, Mr. Gohar, the organizers, and all the attendees, speakers, especially His Excellency Adnan Abu Al-Haija on this Nakba Day. And surely these all kind of programs and resistance, whatever is being carried out across the globe, will have its meaning because we stand by truth, and truth will have always, may it takes time, but it will win soon, inshallah. So we have a strong, firm belief onto it, and since it's the truth, we stand by that. If it would have been false, then we would have never been with those things. Since it's the truth, we are standing for, we have full commitment towards that, and inshallah, we hope that soon the Palestinian struggle will get its freedom, it will get the justice, and will have a success across the world, inshallah. So with these words, we are very thankful to all the attendees and all the speakers tonight, especially His Excellency and the other organizers. And inshallah, we keep continuing these kind of programs, these kind of efforts, and across the globe, the voice for Palestine will keep continuing. Thank you. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Allow me, before you end, please.
Please.
I would like to thank you all and welcome you all in our embassy who are in Delhi, or any one of you when he comes to Delhi. Our embassy is always open. We are ready always to cooperate in any event you are planning, and we can discuss together how can we draw a plan and do it together. Thank you very much, all of you.